एसोसिएसन अफ अस्ट्रेलियन एजुकेसन रिप्रेजेन्टेटिभ इन नेपाल एरी नेपालको 6औं वार्षिक साधारण सभा सम्पन्न भएको छ। कार्यक्रमको शुभारम्भ नेपाल र अस्ट्रेलियाको राष्ट्रिय गानसँगै पानसमा दीप प्रज्वलन गर्दै अगाडि बढाइएको थियो।
जाति भाषा धर्म संस्कृति संदेशाला अग्रगामी राष्ट्र हाम्रो जय जय नेपाल।
कार्यक्रमलाई सम्बोधन गर्दै एरी नेपालका नवनियुक्त अध्यक्ष दिराज शर्माले एरी नेपालको भावी कार्ययोजनाहरूलाई प्रकाश पार्दै सम्पूर्ण उपस्थित अतिथिहरूमा धन्यवाद व्यक्त गर्दै आफ्नो स्वागत मन्तव्य व्यक्त गर्नुभएको थियो।
Why choose Australia as a prestigious education destination? Australia stands as a premier destination for education, renowned for its commitment to internationalization, significant investment in research and development, and hosting 3 of the top 20 globally ranked universities, tuition protection schemes, the well-educated and supportive Nepali diaspora, multicultural society, and attractive stay-back options make Australia a prime destination for Nepali students seeking both education and career developments. When I first landed in Sydney in 2005 with my wife and my elder daughter Dia, the Nepali community in Australia was modest. Including my brothers, who is now an Australian citizen. The significant surge began around 2007, thanks to the Australian government's inclusive policies. Having traveled just before this surge, I feel a personal connection to this remarkable growth. Today, over 200,000 Nepalese, including over 70,000 students, contribute significantly to the Australian economy. Nepal has become the 3rd largest country for students and ranks 7th in Australia's service export business. Over the year, we have established and led various associations. Recognizing the need for a premier and exclusive association, we formed AAERI Nepal 6 years ago with the support of the Australian government and our colleagues from AAERI India. With the dedication of talented colleagues such as Mahesh, Buddhi, Rajendra, Navaraj, and others, AAERI Nepal has become a premier agency association deeply committed to advocacy and providing students with seamless opportunities. Independent and non-biased, AAERI Nepal welcomes all agencies that meet our membership criteria. Starting with 20 agencies, we have now grown to 42 and counting, contributing significantly to major Australian universities and colleges. From the beginning, we have focused on advocating for hassle-free NOCs, addressing equivalent issues with Tribhuvan University, and easing the consultancy renewal process. As the founding president, I have served 2 terms, and after my recent term, with overwhelming support from our members, I decided to lead the association once again. I believe there are still significant challenges in the industry that requires our collaborative efforts to address. Thank you to all members for trusting me again in my term. AAERI Nepal has been closely collaborating with India since its inception, participating in convention in New Delhi and contributing to the AIC conference in Australia annually. We have made joint submissions to Australian government on various issues during challenging times. Our certain lawmakers and media in Nepal often express concerns about the outflow of funds for education abroad. However, they often overlook the substantial benefits that the growing Nepalese diaspora brings to our society in terms of political, economical, social, and lifestyle changes. While remittances remains a major source of income for Nepal, I believe our people are becoming more globally competent, skillful, and financially independent. This transformation is bringing significant changes to Nepal's IT, tourism, and private workforce sectors. I urge the Nepalese government to view international education not as an expense, but as an investment for the country's future. Our neighbors, India and China, have grown tremendously due to their people's global exposure. Our government should capitalize on the strength and talent of the Nepalese diaspora. Nepali students have found remarkable success in Australia, becoming integral parts of both academic institutions and the broader community. Their achievements are a testament to the robust educational ties and the supportive environment provided by both the countries. The stories of Nepali students excelling in their fields and contributing to both Australian and Nepalese societies are numerous and inspiring. ANA President Ananda Pore will later share the success stories of the Nepalese diaspora in Australia and at home. Personally, I had the option of sending my children to other competent countries. However, I choose Australia. One daughter is graduating from the University of Sydney, and another will soon graduate from her high school. I have witnessed firsthand the quality of Australian education and the safety and opportunities it provides for individual growth. Now, what are the challenges of recruitment? Despite positive stories, there are significant challenges in recruitment. Virtual companies and aggregators are disrupting the market by recruiting a wide range of students and using inexperienced sub-agents, frequent changes in immigration policy, manipulated news by local education providers, and the global geopolitical scenario contribute to the challenges. Intense competition among providers, aggressively pursuing recruitment targets, adds to the difficulty for quality and well-established recruiters. I advise frequent dialogues among key stakeholders to avoid confusing students and their parents. The Department of Home Affairs has played a critical role in shaping government policies that impact international education positively. These policies have created a framework that ensures the integrity and quality of education that international students receive in Australia. As we navigate these regulations, it is crucial to stay abreast of recent updates from Australia, including changes in the migration strategies and upcoming amendments to the Education Service for Overseas Student issues framework. The Australian government periodically updates its policies in the best interest of Australia and international stakeholders. By staying informed and adapting to these changes, we can ensure that the recruitment of international students is efficient and beneficial for all the parties involved. As part of the larger community and a chair of Education Councils at CNI, we invited Matthew Johnson, Minister Councillors from the Department of Opportunities in Nepal, and share his experiences in policy formation for establishing standalone Australian university campuses in Nepal. Additionally, we plan to take a delegation, including lawmakers, government employees, and education providers to understand TAE initiatives similar to those in India and Sri Lanka, and foster partnerships with Nepalese universities in dual degree programs, articulation, research, and development. I encourage AAERI Nepal's members to invite university partners and highly academic professionals to explore opportunity in Nepal, particularly in the hospitality and IT sectors, which are priorities of the current government, and also to bring international students to Nepal to study Buddhism at Gautam Buddha University. I would also like to acknowledge the vital role of the Australian Embassy Business Advisory Group, of which I am a member. Quality agencies committed to ethical recruitment practices, enhancing our digital presence through an upgraded website and active social media engagement to reach a broader audience, providing a regular training sessions and workshops for our members to stay updated on the latest industry trends and best practices, advocating for policies that benefits international education and addressing any challenges faced by our members, strengthening our ties with industry partners and education institutions to create more opportunity for Nepali students. Continuing requesting to all the Australian providers to work with Nepal-based agents, mainly AAERI Nepal's member. This growing relationship and the credit for these achievements go to our current ambassador, whose leadership has been exemplary during her tenure. Initiatives like the TIFA agreements pathways have strengthened business ties and opened new avenues for collaboration and growth. We wish her all the best for your future endeavors. And we look forward to welcoming the new ambassador, Australian Ambassador Nepal, soon. As we stand here, it is probably the last time we see Felicity in our formal program, but she will always remain in our heart. As she promised to be around in Nepal, we shall always hope to invite her to our future events based on our availability. You are the most dynamic ambassador in our history, and you have done so much to make the embassy's outreach wider to that the Australian government sees Nepal from its own eyes. We will miss you, Ambassador, as well as my Thuli Didi, my big sister. In conclusion, as we continue to build on these foundations, let us remain committed to maintaining the highest standards of quality and integrity. Together, we can ensure that the next generation of our students receive the education that empowers them to succeed and contribute meaningfully to the society. Thank you all for your attention, and I look forward to our continued collaboration and success. Thank you very much.
त्यस्तै कार्यक्रममा एसोसिएसन अफ नेप्लिज अल्मुनाई फ्रम अस्ट्रेलिया आनाका अध्यक्ष अनन्त पौडेलले आनाको योगदान तथा एरीसँगको सहकार्यको महत्त्वको बारेमा आफ्नो मन्तव्य प्रस्तुत गर्नुभएको थियो।
I would also like to congratulate the former board members for doing an excellent job in their tenure as we went through many challenges in the last 2 years, and also share my best wishes to the new board who I invite to collaborate further closely with ANA, the Alumni Association. Now, as being an education consultant, like many of you, I sometimes have to face really tough questions like, why are you sending so many students abroad? Or statements like, Nepal will be empty thanks to people like you. But we all have to face that, and we all have our unique answers. I was fortunate enough to say that I showed them a big smile, and I let them know that even I went and left Nepal 13 years ago, but I decided to come back. But I stayed there for 2 years. But when I came back with a degree that was from one of the best universities in the world. And I was so fortunate that Australia gave me that visa. And with that Monash University degree, that has really helped me excel in my career. And I also let those people know that as now I am an educational counselor, I am simply doing my duty of helping students achieve their dreams. And also, as a graduate who returned back, I'll help others returnees to settle back to Nepal, help them find jobs if possible, introduce them to various network groups who would be very much related to their fields, so that they don't feel lost in navigating this professional career direction. And I too have personally created more than hundreds of jobs myself, which I'm very happy of. So rather than worrying about the numbers of people leaving the country, I always try to focus on and always advise others to focus on how we can create a much more favorable scenario for people here so that people would want to stay back, or even better, return back to our homeland in Nepal. I think the same is in our country, with our country Nepal. We really need to create more jobs and create better opportunities for the youth so that they can feel they are more productive, which eventually help in boosting our economy. But nonetheless, it is a fact that we need Nepalese diasporas to come back home, come back in Nepal. And when I mean to come back home, I don't necessarily mean that people should sell their modern houses in Sydney or their expensive cars in Perth or even their high salaried job in Melbourne and come back here. But they really need to invest some time back in Nepal, their knowledge and some of their resources which could greatly benefit the industries here in Nepal, which I must add as a banking personnel, I see ample spaces of growth in almost every industry here. But to do so, one really needs courage. A graduate must be confident in their field. That's where a counselor's job comes in great value. They can only be confident when the students are counseled well. When the students are counseled well, they will have the knowledge and they will be able to see the gaps in the industry in any country and have the confidence to work on them. So, in a very similar fashion, many of our members in the Alumni Association came back to Nepal and have contributed greatly to the society. Very few examples that I would like to name here as they are so long. We all have heard of the very famous Dr. Sandhu, the doctor who has restored the eye visions of millions of people through his groundbreaking research on cataract surgery. He was greatly supported by Dr. Fred Hollows, an Australian doctor, without whom the low-cost surgery might not have been possible. Dr. Ruth's effort has not only helped Nepalese, but has also helped people globally. And I know we all are proud of Dr. Ruth. But did you also know that the man who pioneered open heart surgery in Nepal, Dr. Damodar Prasad Pokhrel, a graduate from University of Sydney, also went to pioneer the same surgery in Papua New Guinea. So with his expertise, he pioneered not only in Nepal, but in a different country as well. And the lady doctor who saved our current Prime Minister's life is also the pioneer of nephrology, an important part of the kidney transplant procedure. He's a graduate of Monash University. She is Dr. Divya Singh Shah. And both of these doctors are still working till date. You can go and meet them, but you do need to take an appointment since they are very busy. These are strong proofs that the contribution is immense when skilled people come back and champion the changes. Another example I want to take is, you might have heard about microfinance companies, but did you know the concept was not very actually Western? It was a concept that was created in Bangladesh by Muhammad Yunus. The concept that started in Bangladesh now is a concept that is used worldwide and has successfully tackled poverty to great extent. In a similar fashion, in the environment industry, the concept of community forestry was first tested and implemented in Nepal in a joint project with the Nepalese and the Australian people. Today, the concept of community forestry is practiced worldwide, and this has helped with the communal management of forests and generated income to the community throughout the world. So partnerships as such are very, very important. On an individual level, I also highlight the work done by Mr. Abhishek Shrestha. You might not know him, or you might have, but he is a champion in renewable energy. With his passion in sustainable energy, Mr. Malla has implemented over 1,600 solar energy projects and has impacted the lives of over 10 lakh people in rural Nepal, and who now have access to solar power and making their lives more safer and healthier. Those children who couldn't get light to simply study in the night also now have access to that light source, and now they can study. So it has impacted in multiple ways. I also want to mention the contributions of Dr. Ram Hari Lamichhane, who is a champion in vocational education. Apart from being a true advocate of the need of CTVT education in Nepal, because not everyone can afford a degree, he even served as the first Nepali Director General to the Columbus Plan Staff College based in Manila, Philippines. It is a joint multinational project. It is such an amazing achievement to see a fellow Nepali leading in a global arena. And he too studied in Australia, TAFE, South Australia to be precise. The list is very long. There are governors, ministers, leadership positions, secretaries, even my former president, Dr. Ram Hari sir, he was the first secretary for the first president's office in Nepal. So the message I want to leave you here all today, and at the same time inspire millions more. As an educational consultant, I meet students and I always think, will he be the next Dr. Ruth, or she be the next Dr. Neelam Dhungana? Dr. Neelam Dhungana is a graduate of Wollongong University, and she is the current Deputy Governor of Nepal. And I hope that soon we can have a female Governor of Nepal as well. So here, as the President of an Alumni Association, my humble request to all my educational counselor friends is really understand the students' interests and give them the best possible course options so tomorrow they can be a leader at any field. And of course, you can reach out to Anna to know more about these amazing stories, because they are really a lot, and it will be unfair if I just take your day's time, not just minutes here. But as time is short, before I leave, I want to highlight one more amazing work done by a very special member of ANA. She recently became our member, but she has been immensely supporting ANA wholeheartedly since 2021. She is an Australian. I think she first visited Nepal around 1980, but came back again to Nepal with her love, and she has been here since. I think she likes to call Nepal her second home, but I'm not too sure. Some of the important works that she did is strengthen the bilateral relations of Nepal and Australia in itself. She has worked very hard in bringing the Assistant Foreign Minister of Australia, Tim Watts, to Nepal, and has also brought in multiple members of the Parliament, including the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorary Milton Dick. She and her team created Nepal-Australia Business Advisory Group, which is working very hard to develop and diversify economic relations of the two nations. She recently supported in bringing Australian professors from Curtin University to develop workshops in Kathmandu University in the schools of arts. She even played an important supportive role in creating our Agency Association Alliance, which is more united than ever, and provided opportunity for all of us to have regular dialogue with the members of the Australian High Commission, DHA and Education, which is very important for us because we have to have our voices be heard as well. That's the platform where we can express what problems we are facing. She has even made the first Australian footy rule. She has even made the first Australian footy exhibition match game possible in Nepal. She is a very strong advocate of gender equality and always a kind supporter to the people in need. And finally, there are hundreds of work she has done, but I think most importantly, she has inspired me and thousands of people that she has met. Everyone who has met her or she talks about her always has kind words about her. I am talking about our very own Australian Ambassador Felicity Volk, who we are so lucky and blessed to have. You have done an outstanding job as an ambassador, and you have shown us how mighty yet caring a true leader can be. Thank you again, Ambassador. You give us all strength. Thank you again, AAERI Nepal. Congratulate you on the 6th AGM, and my best wishes to the new board. And I wish everyone here a great night ahead. Thank you.
त्यस्तै कार्यक्रममा अस्ट्रेलियन क्याथोलिक युनिभर्सिटीकी पूर्व विद्यार्थी तथा हाल सोही युनिभर्सिटीकी रिजनल म्यानेजर नेपाल अनुष्का श्रेष्ठले आफ्नो अध्ययनको क्रममा हासिल गर्नुभएको विभिन्न अनुभवहरूलाई शेयर गर्नुभएको थियो।
A very good evening to everybody present here on the dais, esteemed guests and industry colleagues. This is my first time at AAERI Nepal's event, and I must say I am so glad to be here because there are quite a few events that happen at quite a few hotels in and around town. But to be here and still be an event that is engaging, but also has some grit to it. We're not afraid to have some practical conversations, some reasonable questions asked and answered while maintaining decorum and a wonderful environment around is really good to see. I understand I have a little less than 10 minutes with you here today, so I'd like to take this opportunity, perhaps by beginning, since it is my first time at an AAERI Nepal event and perhaps my first time meeting some of the industry colleagues as well, by sharing that when I went to Australia this time 2024 March, it was exactly 10 years ago that I'd stepped into Sydney as a very nervous 18-year-old. I was one of those students that had to wait for her 18th birthday because guardianship documents was just a lot of documentation to create. So I waited for my 18th birthday, got that extension letter and appeared in Australia, landed in Australia the last day that I possibly could, missed my orientation and sort of fumbled through on week 3. As I look back, having spent 5 years in Australia, having completed my Bachelor's of Commerce with an accounting major, believe it or not, from ACU, and the 2 years that I spent after, I could not be more grateful for the time there that has had a significant contribution in forming me as the person that I am today. I'm here, I do wear a few hats, I'm very blessed to wear a few hats. Today, to be here in the capacity of the regional manager for ACU, it feels like I'm on the other side of the counter. From being, as I said, a nervous 17-year-old, going with my parents to different education fairs. The one thing I apologized to my hiring manager as soon as I got the job is I'm so sorry for asking the most obvious questions that have the answers all on the website on you in the fair, because I'm sure you felt like you were saying the same thing, and I'm sure you wanted to say it's on the website. What is the fees? What is the IELTS requirement? When are the starting dates? So I acknowledge and I thanked her and I apologized for having done that. And now on the other side of the counter, it feels a real honor and a privilege to be here, answering, addressing student concerns and engaging with students. Of the many hats that I wear, because of the Miss Nepal hat as well, I'm sure you must think as well that it's a little bit of a concern, as my industry colleague also shared earlier, that how do you feel being part of a team that encourages Nepali youth to leave the country? To that, I say that globalization, as cliched as it sounds, I think cliches translate to kisapita in Nepali. And there is a reason why the same thing is said over and over again, because there's probably some truth in it, is that globalization is inevitable. If we're trying to stop students from going by curbing their right to go and explore, that's really not going to address or not going to provide the solution that we ultimately want, which is capable Nepali youth that contributes to Nepal. That's the big picture. As a provider, on behalf of ACU, I'd like to share that in this very interesting arena of international education, we all play a very unique role as counselors, as education agencies, as providers, as the Australian government, as the Nepali government, and sometimes even various departments within the Nepali government, right? The Ministry of Education might want something, there's the finance department that might want something a little bit differently, but it's all aligned towards a common goal, again, towards building capable Nepali youth that is not just educated, empowered, engaged, has enough exposure, but also has the grit to work as hard as our country requires right now. In one such platform, I had the privilege of sharing a panel with the Vice Chancellor of Kathmandu University recently, and I'd shared something that I did not think would gain as much traction as it did. I'm not sure if somebody's watched that clip where I'd shared that today's Nepali youth, especially the Nepali youth, urban Nepali youth, should go out. Because as long as we have our black tea and our milk tea and our lunches and our dinners served to us, there's no way we can practically learn to become as hardworking as we need to be to build the country that we need to build. And while that got some positive and some negative remarks, I stand by it. That we need to create an environment that builds the robust, resilient, hardworking Nepali youth that the country definitely requires. And again, in doing so, we all play our role. As an education provider, on behalf of ACU particularly, the role that I see, and it is so good, can I just acknowledge my industry colleagues in the room as well, that I'm so inspired by the industry colleagues out here. It's my 4th year. I started in August 2020 in this capacity. I had worked in the finance department and international education advisory sector while I was studying in Australia as well. But being out here, based in Nepal, I think there is a very special and unique role that we play as well. Perhaps earlier we were thought of as representatives that sit on fairs, right? That sit and they give information about the university, that recruitment is the only goal. But as I see, not just the numbers, but the kind of engagement that as education providers that we do, it is really endearing to see. I'm glad to share that as ACU, we've had multiple regular engagement visits, and I think the largest was a very senior delegation that visited us in February this year, led by our Vice Chancellor, our Deputy Vice Chancellor, 3 executive deans, and the Director of Research, all here to want to engage and understand a community. I call it a community, don't like calling it a market so much. A community that contributes so significantly to not just us as an institution, but as a country. So I think that is really endearing to see. And I would encourage, I know that so many of my industry colleagues, as I mentioned, I see Subi's posts of doing so much engagement, not just in Nepal, but all of South Asia, and more, and beyond. So it is really good to see institutions engage with Nepal, and we have to be the sort of the middle people telling our institutions, right? Like, let us engage more with our country, with our community. So it is really good to see that we are heading on that path as well. I'm also proud to say that as an ACU graduate myself, I think the approach that we take, and I see a lot of the market take, right from the agencies to a lot of the providers as well, is that we are all part of a complex and an interesting system, because we cannot deny that there are things to fix. There's unintended byproducts that are definitely happening. But rather than have a very defensive approach towards it, we have all come together to acknowledge what problems exist, what might be the unintended results of it. We acknowledge the good and also the areas of improvement that were so eloquently put forward by Maheshji earlier as well. So on part of the providers, I'd like to share that our vision should definitely be building Nepal as a sustainable community to continue to engage with. I shared something rather radical. Whenever I share some ideas and some counterparts, things such as, just to give you some examples, we're exploring to bring in Nepali nursing students to do their placements in Nepal and rural communities in Nepal, because why not? Teaching students to come to do that. And while it is a long and cumbersome process, it is worth it. Everything in our industry is long and cumbersome and difficult, but it's worth it at the end. And whenever I share these ideas of let us do things that are engaging with the Nepali community, quite often I'm told, oh, you're wearing a Miss Nepal hat right now, you're thinking of community donations and you're thinking of contributions. I definitely think, and I'm sure that my industry colleagues and our guests would definitely agree, that the approach we must take is a very dignified approach. We're not asking for handouts. As a community that contributes so strongly to Australia, I think it is high time that we engage in a very dignified and respectful manner, as our ambassador has exemplified, and many people have given that example. So I would urge and request more of our industry colleagues to explore pathways where we can engage with the Nepali community, engage with students, that leads to a win-win situation and a longer-term growth. Growing numbers, recruitment, the enrollments are the byproduct of the good work that we do. And I think that is one of the main reasons why in the 20-odd years that ACU has been active in Nepal, we've seen many ups and downs, right from being known as a nursing university and facing whatever restrictions that we've faced because of the lack of public health workers that Nepal itself is facing. Having maintained that growth, I think it is a testament that when you engage honestly in the growth of the community that gives you so much, good enrollments, sturdy growth will continue to happen. So these recommendations that on face value might appear to be, oh, you're thinking from a very social work point of view, that's not very an economic decision. I was having a conversation earlier that 75% of Nepali education is government schools. And yet, because of course there's the English language requirement, we continue to engage only with the private schools. I presented a radical idea that if we invest in developing the quality of education in rural areas as well, with combined efforts of the government, don't you think that it makes economic sense as well? And that idea was almost laughed at for being, too social worky, not economical. You're not thinking as from an economic point of view, from an institution. But I do think that if we are talking about, because it can't just keep being extractive, right? We've got to help the community grow so that we can all share the fruits of the growth that happens in the community. I think, and I do want to, I'm mindful of the time that I have as well. I wanted to acknowledge AAERI Nepal. Thank you, Tirachi and Moishi, for inviting me over as well. Is that it is so endearing to see so much collaboration happening in perhaps one of the most cutthroat industries to exist. It is really endearing to see. I also acknowledge all the counselors here. Every time I go into an agency office, I make it a point to share with counselors that you definitely don't have an easy job. I do not envy your job. Because you've got to be aware of everything that's happening in Nepal, in Australia, in the numerous institutions, as pointed out earlier, the difficulties of having different requirements in different institutions. You've got to pick up calls from students and parents and everybody at God knows what time. You've got to know people at the banks, you've got to know what's happening, you've got to know a lot. And when a student does get that visa grant, you get big thank yous and presents, but sometimes when the result is not favorable, you might receive some harsh comments as well. So I acknowledge that the job that you do, even if sometimes you don't get the credit for it, it's a really important job, and we thank you for doing what you do. as Shugayudi mentioned, this is turning out to be a little bit of a farewell event for our ambassador. And along with the many things that everybody has said about you, Ambassador, I wanted to take this opportunity as an aspiring woman leader, if I may say so myself. Thank you for being an example for something for us to be able to look up to. Representation matters. As I was walking down from Burj Khalifa, I'd gone to visit my sister, there's a photo, a poster on every floor of the people who contributed in making the Burj Khalifa. And as I walked down, I did not notice, I was counting the number of women that I saw in every poster. I did not know I was doing it. I was walking subconsciously. And as I walked down, as I came to the ground floor, I said, on average, there's like 2 to 3 women in the team. And I said, wait, what did I do? Why did I do that? Because you see someone like you out there and it gives you that belief that it is possible. As amazing as my male industry colleagues are, it's undeniable that many a times it is very much a gender, I wouldn't say biased, but there's gender heaviness in one sort. So it's really good to see that feminist leadership. So thank you for maintaining that energy and aura of kindness and strength, and for inspiring a generation of not just young women, young men as well, but a little more for the young women. So thank you very much. Lastly, on behalf of ACU, on behalf of the Australian alumni as well, I've got to join that association. That's on my to-do list this year. And as a person who's been on sort of both sides now of the Australian education sector, and as a person who is deeply concerned and connected with the growth of Nepal as a whole, I thank you for doing all that you do. And I'd like to encourage us all to do our part in thinking the longer term picture, which is and always should be centered at developing the Nepali youth to be a contributing strong member of the society. Thank you for this platform. Thank you for your time. Have a great rest of the evening.
यस्तै कार्यक्रममा एरी नेपालका पूर्व अध्यक्ष महेश बाबु तिमल सिन्हाले अस्ट्रेलियन एजुकेसन सिस्टमको पछिल्लो अवस्था तथा भिजा प्रक्रिया लगायतको बारेमा आफ्नो धारणा प्रस्तुत गर्नुभएको थियो।
Nepal is unique. Why is it unique? Because most of these students have got a very strong academic foundation. Today only we had the 10+2 result published, that is the Nepal Education Board, and the result has improved. I think more than 65% have got the excellent scores. So Nepal has got a very solid foundation as an academic, because we have got a lot of government schools which are improving their quality, and also the private schools which are always there as the competitive benefit. So next, the English level of Nepali students are very commendable, because they study from the English medium schools right from their childhood. So that is also one more important thing that generally education and visa demands for studying in the English-speaking country like Australia. And number 3 is the funds that any embassy or the government looks after when actually checking the integrity or the capability of the students to study. Nepal, although the economy is growing, but what we can do is, whatever the documents the student or the parents submit, those are all verifiable. Luckily, after the Australian immigration put some changes in place, we as an education consultant, also the students and parents are aware that every document will be verified, and based on that the integrity check will be done. Fortunately, what we can say is, if the student has got the education loan from A-class bank, we have now the virtual verification tool. Like there are some QR code in some of the loan papers, and sometimes there is the reference number which we can check from our own computer. So that part is sorted, and also the mortgage deed and loan disbursement letter all can be verified. Not only that, if you doubt about the incomes of the parents, that is also now quite verifiable from the tax department, IRD. If you just put the tax clearance certificate number in the IRD website, you can actually see whether that tax is paid or not. So we have improved a lot thanks to the Australian government having the tight ropes in Nepali, student visa last year. So this is a lesson for us, and this is the way that we address ourselves, we adapt ourselves.
That has
So
actually increased our GDP as well.
yeah, of course. I mean, yes, people are now willing to pay the taxes because they want to send their kids abroad.
Very good, Father.
And I mean, especially Australia. I actually sent my daughter herself last year. This year actually. So she has completed her first semester, came back here for holiday, and she's now again back to Australia. So I was even, nervous whether my financiers would be, able to do that or not. But so this is what the Australian perspective of education and the visa integrity is. So we are quite aware, and the students' parents visit right after their high school, the 10th grade, to consult with the education consultant. So that's how they are, nervous and anxious about maintaining the financials. So this is one perspective. And if you look at Nepal as a market, we are the 8% of the total international population in Australia, which is quite high, I think, as compared to the population. And if you see the data of 2023, 370,000 plus students were studying their higher education, 10+2. And if you count all the numbers of university students as well, that was more than 579,000. And if you see the NOC data, Semanta sir is here, who also looks after the Nepalese education consultancies and monitors that from Government of Nepal, Ministry of Education. So 110,000 plus NOCs were issued in 2022-23. So Nepal is a huge market. If we see the next slide, we have significantly contributed to the Nepalese government. That's what I can say. So around 2,500 education consultancies are there spread across Nepal. Average 20 staff per consultancy, that is the employment that we have generated. Average $10,000 US is the fees that they pay, and it's around 40 Arabai. So the huge amount, the contribution to the Nepal government and also the contribution to the Australian government should be recognized in a very good way. That's what I'm trying to explain. And if you see the recent data of the no objection certificate, unfortunately Australia is declining. If you compare the data of 2022 and 23, that was down by 59%. And other countries are actually growing. So what we worry is we always project Australia as a very suitable destination for Nepalese students, but the drop in the number of NOC and eventually the drop in the number of the visa application has projected the serious concern among the counselors, among the students and parents, whether Australia needs the student from Nepal or not. So that's the general concern. If we see the next slide, 2024 is even lower, and we can understand that the migration strategy outlines, taking the number to half, but only 6,621 NOCs are being issued for Australia. That is from January to July 14th. So we are already half there, and then we are pretty low in numbers. So I think that is something that Australian government, DHS should take note of, and then actually make it convenient for the students who are really genuine and willing to study in Australia to be a little flexible and do the favorable decision. So next slide. These are the numbers which we can find from the data.gov.au. So I'm not going in detail, but the number of visa applications are dropping. So if you see in this November 2023, just 815 visas were applied for the higher education sector, and only 13 visa was applied for the VET from offshore. So the number is declining every month. But if you see the 2024 data, we actually can have some of the rays of hope, because the number of higher education applications are growing. 2,063 in January, and eventually, as per the intake, of course. So May 24 was 1,004, and June 24 it was 1,424. The approval rate is increasing, which is really nice. So if you see the data, 93.2% of approval rate, 81.6% in 24. So this is gradually increasing. This is also because the numbers are going down and the quality has gone up, and that's why the number of visa allotment has gone down, but the grant rate has always gone up, as you can see. So this is a positive sign, and it's high time that you consider Nepal as a very good study source country, which Nepal has always been. So if you see the graph, it's very troublesome. It's like the roller coaster ride. If you see the grant number and the lodgement number, it has gone zigzag. So what we want to see is we want to see the sustainable and stable graph, and we are also responsible to guide the students accordingly, and also we expect the same from DHA by setting out the clear guidelines and also helping the students get visa who are really eligible and deserve it. So in the next slide, I've actually calculated the economics. I'm not the student of economics, but students lose around 530,000 Nepali rupees, 5,30,000 rupees if their visa got rejected, thanks to the Australian government's hike in the visa application fee. Now they will be paying 1,46,000 as the visa application fee, which is a bit high, but it's already there. So, and if the visa is refused, they will lose more, 100,000 more, so that the total amount of figure tentatively would be around 5,30,000 if they don't get the visa to Australia. I'm not trying to say anything in this, I'm just trying to present the data so that I have some recommendation to DHA which can be or cannot be implemented, but this is our long-term suggestion to the DHA to make the market stable and preserve the brand Australia as it has always been. So our recommendations, I'd like to outline it. Ensure proper screening and verification of all visa applications, sometimes which we feel is missing. The generic assessment and not specific detail, paying the attention to detail in the visa application has hampered it. And also the genuine student requirement that has been implemented sometimes gets confusing because the education provider has got their own GSR criteria while the High Commission has got different one. So if we can just see the similarity, also the unison in that GSR requirement, of course, we'll be more confident to choose the students accordingly. And one more suggestion that we have been always putting it, allow the fees payment after the pre-visa approval, which will save a lot of money from the students because they have to remit the money to Australia and they have to ask for the refund where they lose a lot of money and interest as well. Next, reconsider the plan to reduce migration through unfair visa rejection. So if we can actually control right from the source, then we don't have to be harsh enough to reject more visas. And one more thing, very technical one, but we actually recommend the students to be pre-informed for the visa interviews because sometimes they are not in the convenient position to take the call and give the answers to the High Commission call. So that is one of the recommendations from our side. And the refusal letter has always been the concern from us. Sometimes it's vague and ambiguous. So we actually appreciate the specific reason for refusal. And sometimes if the refusal is not aligned to the migration regulation, allow appeal for the reconsideration in special cases. That's our recommendation. And very technical and mail data, but number 7 is the provide the quickest means of communication for the technical faults arising in the IMI portal for students, because I think there's a different technical team or the outsourced team looking after the IMI portal account. So if you can provide us the dedicated contacts to solve those issues, that would be much appreciated. So these are the facts, figures, our pains, our joy and everything that I have actually put forward in the data. And this will of course be some sort of, the understanding of the Nepalese education and visa perspective. And we have our guest from DHA today. They have to leave at 6:30, but I think I've taken more time. But without any delay now, because addressing these issues will also be somewhat important, and they have got the very important updates for us. We actually met a very wonderful person in March 2024 who looks after all the visa operations now. She is Ms. Catherine, Second Secretary of Immigration. She actually started her term in March, I think, and we met her in Delhi. So that was kind of welcome, meeting. And she will be presenting about the visa and all the stops, the updates as well. Before that, we have Jed Dhoni, who is the counselor in Department of Home Affairs. She's based in Delhi, and we met her in June last year, 2024, in the embassy. So Yeah, this year only. Yeah, this year. And she was actually very much attentive to the problems that Nepal is facing and our concerns as well. So your presence in today's event is quite helpful, and thanks for confirming your presence in the last minute. So I'd like to request Ms. Jane Donnie to put her perspective forward, and after that will be followed by Ms. Catherine. Thank you so much.
त्यस्तै कार्यक्रममा उपस्थित विभिन्न वक्ताहरूले एरी नेपालको 6औं वार्षिक साधारण सभाको सफलताको शुभकामना व्यक्त गर्नुभएको थियो।
It's an honour and a privilege that Catherine and I are here from New Delhi. We do have to leave on a flight afterwards. We made a very last-minute trip, but we hope that that is a signal of the significance of the relationship between us and our ongoing efforts to cooperate on migration and education. As we've heard from some of our earlier speakers, our ties are vast and they are deep, but they are very much centred around education and migration. So I hope that, yes, us being here tonight, we can continue to build our relationship and grow together. So touching on some of the shared challenges and successes we've had together, I think I'd like to acknowledge some of the journey we've been on the last few years. I know sometimes we do compare the data between this year and last year, but I would like to acknowledge that in recent years, and not underestimate the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. It impacted many countries in many different ways, but in a big way it impacted education and migration for many countries. So I think our story kind of starts there, and when our borders closed, and it kind of evolved from there. So migration and policy settings related to migration are challenging, and they're very hard for countries to decide and set, and they're not something that any country can set and forget, particularly when we are impacted by such unprecedented crises and events. So in response to COVID, we reopened our borders, and to kind of support our education sector, we did increase the number of arrivals that we could have. And I think we were operating in very uncertain times and uncharted territory. We didn't really know what to expect when we were opening our borders. Everyone was very cautious and nervous and scared about the future, but we thought best to open our borders. So we've had a bit of time since then, and then in 2023, the Australian government decided to undertake a range of reviews into our migration system to confirm, have we got things right? We were seeing some challenges in Australia, and the purpose of these reviews was to articulate how we're going, identify things that might need rectifying, and celebrate the things that we're doing really well. So as part of that, you know, we really recognise, and our Minister for Home Affairs really recognises that migrants continue to be an essential part of our economic and social fabric in Australia. We're a multicultural society. We have been for as long as our existence, and we want to continue that. So our migration strategy was released on 11th of December last year, and it really articulates the government's vision for getting migration working for us and working for our partner countries as well, but supporting us to build a system that delivers for workers, businesses and all Australians. So this will ensure that our migration system is better targeted to build Australia's economic prosperity and security, as well as the migrants that visit Australia. So it's a whole of government strategy, and that means that we've worked really closely with our other government stakeholders. So our education colleagues in particular have been very closely aligned and worked very closely on us building that strategy. So lines of effort that it has worked closely with included the employment white paper to secure jobs and better pay for Australians as well. So the migration strategy is building a system that Australians can trust and will return migration back to pre-pandemic levels. So I know, you know, in the data we see it kind of jumping around a little bit. We're really trying to stabilise it to where we were pre-pandemic to get that consistent growth rather than see it bounce around. So the migration strategy is drawn on the key findings of the migration review conducted by Dr. Martin Parkinson, ACPSM, Professor Joanna Howe and Mr. John Azarias, and the 483 public submissions it received, which we've published in April last year. So we undertook a lot of consultation with the public sector, with academia, with a lot of people. It was public, so anyone could put in a submission. And that was really to hear views and take on feedback around our migration system. So some committees in the commitments in the migration strategy reflect the government's response to the review into exploitation of Australia's visa system, which was the Nixon review. So in our migration strategy, we incorporated a range of initiatives that go to the heart of addressing migrants' experiences in Australia. There were some concerning things that were highlighted in some of those reviews that we undertook relating to migrants being exploited, and that is something that Australia is steadfast in stamping out and committed to resolving. So a lot of the changes are reflective of ensuring that we have a trusted system that migrants can trust, and ensure that, you know, when you are sending people and your students to Australia, they're going to have a positive experience and they're not taken advantage of. So the strategy has 5 core objectives that are really helping to try and build a more prosperous migration system in Australia. So one of the objectives is raising living standards by boosting productivity, meeting skills shortages and supporting exports. Another one is ensuring a fair go in the workplace by complementing the jobs, wages and conditions of domestic workers and preventing migrant worker exploitation. Building stronger communities is key as well, by better planning for sustainable migration and giving migrants the opportunity to invest in their lives in Australia through permanent residence and citizenship, so providing clearer pathways to those who wish to stay in Australia. Strengthening international relations, of which Nepal is key, by building stronger economic and social connections with our regional neighbours and international partners. And making the system work by being fast, efficient and fair for migrants and their employers. We really want to get our approach right, particularly when it comes to processing visas, ensuring that there is a fair outcome for applicants. So the migration strategy will in turn remove barriers in the system that prevent highly skilled migrant workers from coming to Australia. Skilled migration reforms will better connect skilled migrants to Australia's skills needs, helping to reignite productivity growth, which will ensure rising living standards, business growth and better wages. And really important for this group, the student visa reforms will ensure that genuine high quality students and education providers have access to Australia's world-class international education sector, and restrict onshore visa hopping that undermines system integrity and encourages people who have studied in Australia to return home after their studies and bring that knowledge and experience back to Nepal and other countries. So really, a lot of the measures that we're introducing go away to addressing gaps and weaknesses that provide opportunities for exploitation of vulnerable migrants and undermine social justice and public trust in our migration system. So we're working really hard to restore that trust. And the improved migration program planning will enable better coordination to meet the strategic, structural and long-term challenges we face in both our cities and regions and abroad. So there are a range of actions under our strategy, and I won't go into each one specifically. We have got them listed in our migration strategy, and I'm sure you're all well across them as well. But I would just like to add that we're really focused on ensuring managed and sustainable growth. We don't want to see that up and down roller coaster ride that we saw in the data. But I'm really heartened to see that the grant rate is increasing, and it seems to be steadily increasing. So I think that now that the migration strategy is starting to be implemented, we're seeing the positive impact of that, and we're levelling out, which is really good. So we're seeing the positive benefits of getting the settings right. So I would thank you everyone kindly for your patience while we've undergone these immense changes in our own government and the impacts that that's had on many countries. These changes are being applied globally. There is, it's a country agnostic approach. No country is getting a better or worse deal than anyone else. So we're all on this journey together, and I'd just like to repeat my thanks to you and for our close relationship, and being here I hope is a signal that, you know, we will be back, we will visit. We're trying to have more face-to-face interaction as well, and we really appreciate hearing your concerns and challenges and also hearing the successes as well. So thank you again.
Lodgements from applicants outside Australia are approximately 14.18% lower than the same period in 2022-23. However, onshore lodgements were higher, with the last program year reflecting 216,564 versus 166,629 onshore lodgements the previous year. Just under 377,000 student visas were granted in the 2023-24 program year, a decrease of approximately 200,000 compared to the previous program year, but close to the previous program year record of 405,742, which was set in 2018-19. The department is currently processing all student visa applications by order of priority under the ministerial direction. All applications will continue to be assessed in date order in each priority category, and visa applications in lower priority will take longer to process. The median processing time for student visas across all sectors in May 2024 increased to 86 days from 45 days in April, noting the department continues to balance the integrity of the student program with timely application processing in line with Ministerial Direction number 107. To give them the best chance of having their visa application finalised in time, we recommend that students allow 8 weeks for visa processing if studying at an EL1 provider, 12 weeks if studying at an EL2 provider, and 16 weeks if studying at an EL3 provider. So some more specific Nepal lodgement and grant trends. So from 1 July 2023 to the 30th of June 2024, there was a reduction of 5,377 Nepalese nationals lodging a student visa from the previous program year. However, Nepal does remain the third largest source country in terms of lodgements. 41,955 student visas were lodged by Nepalese nationals. Of these, 20,550 were lodged by Nepalese outside Australia. This is a decrease of approximately 41.93% on the previous year, where there were 35,383 offshore lodgements. In the same period, 19,397 Nepalese nationals were granted a student visa. Of these, 630 were granted to Nepalese nationals outside Australia. The overall grant rate to offshore Nepalese student visa applications was 58.5% in the 23-24 program year. The grant rate varied by sector, so higher education grant rate was 58.8%, vocational education was 42.1%, and postgrad research grant rate was 99.5%. Whilst there is still room for improvement on the grant rate, I note that the department has seen a significant improvement in student visa applications lodged by offshore Nepalese nationals across the program year. Just to put this into context, the grant rate for each quarter of the program year, so the first quarter started at 48.7%, it then increased to 58.1% in the second quarter, the third quarter was 65%, and the fourth quarter ended at 73%. This is fantastic to see and shows that the vetting processes here in Nepal are improving substantially. Some of the key factors that are driving grants for Nepal are better academic and English scores, applicants more likely to have a better written SOP or genuine student question responses that directly address the applicant's own circumstances and are supported by documentary evidence, better evidence of employment claims, for example, more likely to have evidence of salary going into bank account, aligning with other employment documents, longer term access to funds and or better quality evidence, bank transaction statements and tax documents, or regular income. Funds held / education loans issued appear to correspond with the verifiable income claims of the family. So some of the concerns that we're seeing across applications that are being refused are a number of applicants had not followed the statement of purpose guidance provided on our website for the GTE requirements for applications that were lodged prior to the 23rd of March. Since the genuine student requirement has been introduced, we're also seeing generic responses to the genuine student questions in a number of applications. Generic responses, unsupported by evidence, will not be weighed heavily in a genuine student or a GTE assessment. When assessing GTE and GS, we will give weight to the information the applicant provides in their application and the declaration in their SOP and responses to the GS questions. Students should have included the following: a 300-word statement relating to their own personal circumstances, only where GTE applies, or for genuine student criteria, clear responses that articulate the applicant's personal circumstances, supporting documents to substantiate any claims, explanation and evidence of source of funds, and explanation with supporting evidence of any study gap period. Each case is assessed on its individual merits, and the decision maker will consider the applicant's claims in the context of their overall application. Agents should scrutinise claimed employment covering study gaps closely. Flags for concern can include salary not being credited into a bank account, spelling or formatting issues on employment letters, lack of web presence or of business, applicant unable to describe their role and responsibilities in their interview. Applicants are also refused due to concerns regarding genuine access to funds or financial claims. Claims regarding finances should be supported by independently verifiable evidence. Self-declared income claims are given no weight in our assessment. The Department provides guidance on how an applicant can demonstrate they have genuine access to money on our website at Department of Home Affairs, step by step. Gather your documents. Officers may consider the circumstances of the applicant or the person providing the funds to determine whether they would genuinely have access to the funds. This includes consideration of their employment history, income and assets, their source of income, for example, the nature of the relationship between the applicant and the person providing the funds, and other relevant matters. Where documentation provides conflicting information, for example, the sponsor is unable to present long-term bank statements with regular income consistent with business turnover, tax documents, salary slips and employment documents, this would be a concern. This also includes where an applicant or their sponsor's bank account includes large lump sum deposits and/or recent fixed deposits that are not commensurate with the sponsor's annual income. Where an applicant is reliant on a loan, they should include evidence of the security used, the terms of the loan, and evidence they or their sponsor can cover ongoing costs. Any sponsor who is assisting to repay the loan should also be listed on the loan documents. Where an applicant is reliant on money deposit, they should include evidence of the source of funds. Claims that are not supported by the documentary evidence provided or are lacking documentary evidence to support claims will be given little or no weight in the GTE/GS and finances assessment. Fraud also remains prevalent across South Asia caseloads, particularly with key underpinning documents, so those used to support GS, financial, academic and English language claims. Education providers and agents who are verifying supporting documentation achieve better grant rates. We hope to see continued improvement in the student visa applications received from Nepal and look forward to continuing to work closely with providers and yourselves to ensure high quality, genuine applications are submitted by Nepalese nationals. Thank you to Mahesh for sending through members' questions in advance. I'll pass back to Jade now to answer the questions that were submitted.
Going abroad in different universities for the higher education is the right. It's the right of the students, we can't stop it. I'm involved in so many discussion forum, that how can we stop going Nepalese students abroad for the education. But I'm not in favor of that discussion because, we should have to give that opportunity because definitely, yes, from the data also that we can see that a lot of money had been flown, a lot of resources had been flown from this country to different other countries. Being a poor country, that matter to the government. But from my perspective, it is an investment. We should have to take it as an investment. Definitely we will get return one day. We should not think from very short vision. When our children will be educated abroad, definitely they will come back to Nepal with good skill and good entrepreneurship, and they will definitely contribute to develop this country. It may take some years because they are just studying. Now we can see so many entrepreneurs studied abroad and they are already back now and they started their venture in Nepal. It's a big contribution. From this also we can see that, they will, all the students going abroad, Australia, Japan, US, no matter where they go, they will come back and contribute to develop this country. Because every people will have the love to their own country, no matter where they live. That is my view. Therefore, I came in this forum, although it's not directly concerned with me. I'm just thinking that why not we have the reverse migration also. Being a Vice Chancellor of the Lumini Buddhist University, I got plenty of opportunity to work with the different Buddhist countries. And I can see a lot of opportunities to bring the students from those countries in Nepal to study the Buddhism. In my university, I'm not only teaching Buddhism, I'm also teaching the applied Buddhism. In the applied Buddhism, we have everything from management to engineering, medicine, everything we are teaching. Therefore, my request to this forum is, this is just my wild thought. Will it be possible to have the, agreement with your organizations to bring the students from Australia, currently Australia. Now, if I get opportunity to speak in other forum, I will definitely request them to bring the students from those countries also to Nepal for the study. Because in Nepal also we have so many things, that we can give to this world. Like, in the Buddhism, the Buddhist philosophy, Nepal is the birthplace of Buddha. Therefore, we have all the claim in the Buddhism, and also all the original documents still we preserve in this country for the research. And people love to come to Nepal to study the Buddhism. And not only the Buddhism, in the Buddhism also, we have a lot of fine arts that we can give. The paintings, the tanka printings, the bronze, wood, and other, stone carvings. These are the things, we have the specialty in these things, We can give the education to the foreign students, in this field also. The meditation, another important field that we can introduce. The yoga, the natural, therapy, the herbal therapy. So many things, that we can give to the Western world. Therefore, why don't we think from this perspective also, so that we can migrate the foreigners in Nepal for the study. Just for your information, I had already introduced this to Chinese people, Chinese university. I'm getting, currently I have around 200 students from China studying Buddhism and Nepal studies. And some are doing PhD from my university. And for this September session, I will be getting again more than 300 students from China. And I just want to share my idea with this forum. Will it be possible to have dual degree program in Australia? So that at least I can hold Nepalese students for 2 years in this country, and the 2 years they will study abroad. Yeah. Because this is the strategy. Actually, all the universities you should have to take it. And in the master degree, 1+1 program. In the bachelor degree, 2+2 program. Recently, we have the meeting, the BC Coordination Committee meeting, and we had discussed to update our courses also. Also, we discussed about the result, because we are very late in publishing the result. Now we are improving it. Because now all the service providers, let us say universities, they feel the challenges because we are getting very less number of students in the universities, and so many departments are closing down because of the non-availability of the students in those departments. Now you should have to think it. Therefore, if 2+2 is possible, I'm planning to visit Australia in the month of October, just to explore if it is possible in the Australian university. Because I had already signed many agreements in China, and I am sending my students to study in China, and also I'm getting students from there to study in Nepal. And some students, just recently, 22 students, they came from China to study Nepali language for 6 months. Anyway, something is happening positive. And I want to have the same thing, from other countries also. Recently I was in Japan, and I'm putting the same thing to the, Nepalese staying in Japan. And I found so many Nepalese students went in the student visa, and they had not completed their study over there. And they're staying there just working. Very much worried on that. Therefore, I'm planning to offer the course for those who had not completed their study in those countries, including Australia. Why not they take the course of Nepal University, of my university, the Lumine Buddhist University. I can give the online course for them, for their suitable time. We will start our class at their suitable time, so that they will get the degree working in that particular countries also. And these are the few things I'm just working on. Recently, we signed the agreement even in Russia. I'm going to Russia for that, for the further discussion very shortly on the 8th. Because, if we don't explore this, definitely our universities will be closed down because of the lack of distance in the classes. Therefore, 2+2 will be great, and you should have to help for this. I'm ready to sign those agreements. And these are the only things that I want to share in this forum. I don't have much more things to share because I'm not from this field. And one other question that I want to ask, will it be possible to send the foreign students via Nepal to Australia? Studying in Nepal in 2+2 program, will it be possible to send them for, let us say, for 6 months or for 1 year, just to give the exposure? That will be another, possibilities. And we can give this to the Chinese students, especially to the Chinese students, China is the big market for the universities, because you might know, only 40% of the students get chance to go in the university in China. 60% they have to take the vocational education, or they have to find the university outside. And I'm a little surprised that they have the slogan that they say go west. Go west. They want to send their children to west to get the education. The one thing very good in that country I found is after completing their education, they come back to China and they get a lot of opportunity to work in Chinese industries. That is the big thing. Recently, we have some land, 100 biga land, that is about 61 hectares of land. And the Chinese architecture company, they prepared a master plan for us. And it was so advanced, so excellent, and all the architects, all the engineers were the young guys, they studied abroad. All of them were, the product from different universities, they studied abroad. And that is the benefit, the China is taking. In future, definitely, we will also get that opportunity that I can see. I don't know whether I will be able to see that development or not, because I'm already now 73. Therefore, I don't know how many more years I will survive. I don't know it. But anyway, definitely one day this country will also develop because the Nepalese will get a very good education abroad. With this, I just want to give thanks to this organizer giving me this forum. Thank you very much.
I was educated in the West, like Dr. Subarna said, and still a student there. It's very interesting to come here and witness and see the possibilities of going to Australia and studying. I feel like I want to be a student again, leave my education in the so-called Harvard and then go somewhere in Australia. I was born in the eastern part of Nepal, in a district called Songkhwasawa, in a municipality called Madi, in a village called Chiraiti, to a single mother some 33 years ago. 33 years ago, my mother, who's never been to a school, could never have imagined me standing here and telling a joke that nobody laughed at. Or some people did. So, the farthest anyone in my village, in my family, could have imagined is me working as a cheap labor somewhere in Saudi, Qatar, Dubai, like my father, uncle, and my cousins rightly do so right now. As the first university goer in my family, I have had the privilege of seeing the world and using education as the ticket to understand what it is like to dream of a future away from poverty into prosperity. From waking up to taking care of chickens, to understanding and walking to school 2.5 hours, to receiving a scholarship to study in the capital of Nepal, I moved away from a pathway that my family lived or were to live, which is returning back from Saudi Arabia with a tape recorder on my shoulder, with a bag that had ropes around it, and thinking I've catered to my family, being married at 16, to today standing here and saying, there's so much that people can imagine if they're educated. It's a privilege to be here, and I happen to be one of those lucky chaps. I never paid for education, so I don't think I would possibly fit into the room. At 8 years, I gave an exam that got me a ticket to study in Kathmandu. And then I subsequently got a scholarship paid for by someone named Himalaya Shamsir. He thought I was an okay child to invest in. So I went to study in Venezuela and subsequently finishing my education in Venezuela and Costa Rica. Somebody else thought, why not give this child who has been supported by someone else another opportunity to go and study somewhere else. So I was in the US While being in the education system, one thing that I realized and that actually made me a different person was I loved questioning. Education taught me to question. And everything, every day, every morning I wake up, there's a new question that I encounter. I feel like education has taught me to answer questions with solutions that have a question. And rightly so, in 2015, when I finished my undergraduate, I returned back to Nepal. Well, I really didn't return back to Nepal. I had a contract in hand that would have paid me $500,000 and allowed me to stay in the US, or return back to Nepal and figure out how to make the $500,000. $500,000, sorry. Me being me, I decided that I would take on the challenge and not take the contract. It was exciting back then. My mom thought I was crazy. My family thought I failed, to an extent that they even said I was deported from the US. So excited. I was basically the hot news in the talk of the town. Basically, oh, there's this dude who's returned back from the US. He gave up a contract. He was kicked out from the US. Well, stories as such are very challenging. They get up to your mental health a lot. You've got to be very strong when coming back to this country. Returning back is not seen as a good sign of a successful person. And you've got to have a skin as thick as that of a rhinoceros, or could be of a crocodile. Definitely crocodile. To come back and take on that wrath, right? Your family is not as supportive. The community is already in this circle of saying, why would you want to come back to this country that's failing? Well, 2015, I returned back and I told my mom, I don't have a choice now, I can't go back. Every morning I questioned my decision to come back. I came back with hopes that I could transform this country, transform the story of returning back as a success. Rightly so, I didn't realize it was going to be very challenging. So I started this organization called AAERI Nepal. I was very confident. I basically came back and told Social Welfare Council and a number of people that I can transform the education of this country. Give me the opportunity. And they were like, they looked at me. I wore a half band, chappal, and I was carrying a bag and going to these government offices. And they looked at me and they said, like, are you sure? I said, yeah. Then for 7 months, I went around all the offices trying to convince them that I was the right person, the solution to primary education problem in Nepal. In the 7th month, as my patience weighed down, I realized, oh, there's a different way of doing things here. You don't request them. You ask somebody else to request them. And yeah, since then the journey has been a good one.
You were the person, by the way.
Let's probably not mention it now. But honestly, 7 months in, learning so much, I've realized that the importance of relationships. This country has taught me, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's after who you know comes what you know. Because who you know is going to train you to tell people to tell what you know. So yeah, 8 years on, 82 schools, 14,000 children, 14,000 dreams that are completely different. No, none of them dropping out of school, receiving good quality education. Lives transformed, people dreaming of a life away from poverty into prosperity. That's what I've achieved. It's been a challenge, convincing local governments, convincing provincial governments to come in and join forces. We tried to transform the landscape of the NGO world. That's been one of those plagues that's always been talked about. We tried to create an industry where children no longer leave school, go for remittance abroad, but to stay here and see if they can imagine of a future here in Nepal or away somewhere else, but a future that is not in exploitation, in child labor, or anything other than just a future where they can be what they want to be. me being me, I thought I would stop right there and say, I don't want to make the $500,000 I lost. And so in 2017, I decided I'll take on a challenge. I decided I'll try to transform the agriculture sector of this country. Everybody was talking about milk being wasted and no healthy products. I was like, why isn't anyone doing anything about it? Not that I knew that nobody was doing anything, but I assumed nobody did anything. So, teamed up with a few friends, started this company called Delish Dairies. It's Nepal's first Greek yogurt company. And as soon as we launched, we were decently hit. As in, we became a pretty good company that everybody loved. And today, after our first Series A funding, we just received July 15, a company that started at $10,000 is worth $15 million as we speak. And it's a testament that this country is filled with possibilities. It's just the patience that is required. And with companies that I've been happily associated with, from the likes of Sweet Fakes to Bloom Nepal School to Delish Dairies, one thing I've learned is it's the people of this country that make ideas and organizations work and successful. As I see these faces here, I know one thing. You guys have a lot of patience. You're still in Nepal, which is a testament of that. And if you return back, majority hopefully have returned back from somewhere, experiences abroad. I can only say things are only going to get better because we've already seen the worst of it. And as you encourage people to go and get education abroad, the biggest recommendation and advice I would give is the possibility of returning back to this country isn't closed. And those possibilities can be shown by people like yourselves. The window to the outer world is you. The window to the inner world is you itself. While you encourage them to go abroad, do definitely encourage them to come back. Not leaving a contract that paid them $500,000 of course, but yeah, if they do have a chance to come back, if they ever ask you, what's the state like here? It's the negatives you can focus on or the positives that will encourage them. Nepal is not everybody's piece of cake, but everybody that leaves this country was once a Nepali. And returning back and doing something is not difficult. The current hopes are really amazing. Politics is changing. Young politicians are coming. Corrupt politicians are coming. Corrupt will stay, corrupt will go. But the hope lies in the fact that young people are making things happen here. And the likes of yourselves are helping bridge the gap between the greater education that can be received and the likes of Professor Subarna are transforming and imagining of universities' possibilities in this country. This country has immense possibilities. Not of the fact to become the best in the world. We're already the best. It's just imagining and seeing what can be achieved. I thank you all for having me here. Especially thank you for accepting me as one of your guests. And it's just an honor. Thank you so much.
कार्यक्रमका प्रमुख अतिथि नेपालका लागि अस्ट्रेलियन राजदूत फेलिसिटी भल्कले एरी नेपालको 6औं वार्षिक साधारण सभाको सफलताको शुभकामना व्यक्त गर्दै नेपाल र अस्ट्रेलियाको सुमधुर सम्बन्धको बारेमा बोल्दै शैक्षिक क्षेत्र लगायत अन्य क्षेत्रहरूमा आपसी सहयोग रहिरहने धारणा व्यक्त गर्नुभयो।
Thank you so much for the warmth of welcome and the very beautiful things that have been said tonight about my time here, which have moved me to tears on multiple occasions. I feel I have the unenviable task at the moment of being the last speaker at the end of some really fascinating talks and conversations, but I know that you're all probably quite hungry, and so I'll try not to take up too much more of your time and attention this evening. My task is also unenviable because I come after such an inspiring talk from Surya, and I thank you for that. It's also a point of coincidence for me because only yesterday I was at a farewell that was hosted by the EU ambassador for me. And I would have to say that at least half of the time that we spent together having lunch, we were talking about Sweet Fix. And I have to say I hadn't come across it before, but I was told in much detail, in delighted detail, about the joys of Sweet Fix. And so I'm putting on my bucket list in my last 3 weeks here, I need to sample your products. But congratulations on everything you've achieved, not just for yourself, of course, but for the entire country and for the inspiration of your story. So let me return to the things that I need to say, that I've prepared to say. First of all, a very deep thanks to our immediate past president, Mahesh. Thank you for the invitation to join you tonight. And to the distinguished guests on the dais, to the distinguished new executive, to our AAERI members. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so delighted to be with you. And this will be indeed my last AAERI AGM. So I wanted to offer my congratulations to the new executive committee led by the new president, the new immediate past president. Is there such a title? So here we are again. Congratulations, Dwaraj. Great to see you once again in this role. But I also wanted to thank the past committee because I know that you have worked very hard over the previous period. So it's a great pleasure to be with you all to mark another year of AAERI's very strong support to Nepali students and their families, and to look ahead to the next year of cooperation to promote both the Nepal student brand and the Australian education brand. And it seems like only yesterday that I was joining AAERI at the AGM in 2021, and it was in the middle of the COVID pandemic, and I recall that we met in person but we were all masked up, and it was one of my very early engagements with dear friends in the education sector. And in the 3 years since, we've seen a lot of ups and downs. We've worked our way through COVID and border closures, which I know put a terrible strain on students, their families, and on the industry. And we've since seen the exponential rise in students applying for and taking up study opportunities in Australia immediately after borders reopened. But now we're also seeing the implications of Australia's new migration strategy unfold. And I realise that this is a very testing time for everybody. And again, I thank Mahesh for really outlining some of the challenges that you're experiencing. I appreciate the honesty of the conversation that you have initiated tonight, and I'm very glad that I had colleagues from our Department of Home Affairs here to hear that conversation and to take back your reflections, because I think it's so important that we maintain an open conversation. But throughout all of these cycles, the level of cooperation and collaboration between AAERI Nepal and the embassy that I've been leading, I feel has remained really solid, and I've deeply valued my engagement with each of you. Your feedback to me, as well as to the visiting teams of immigration and education officials from New Delhi, has helped me to do what I can to advise on policy as it's being developed in Canberra, and to try and shape those policies more positively as they're being designed. Sometimes we have successes, sometimes we don't, but it's really important to be able to feed back what you're experiencing here at the coalface in the market. So I'm really grateful for your commitment to that, and to build a very strong Nepali student brand that's characterised by integrity, and also your efforts to help maintain a strong Australian education brand. And against the backdrop of these ups and downs, we've seen new momentum in the relationship in many other aspects of it, including in that government-to-government space with exchanges, but also in the people-to-people linkages. Our diplomatic relations are built, of course, on that most important foundation of these links, these people-to-people links. There is a human bridge between our countries, which I believe has widened and it has deepened, and it continues to do so, I think, with every passing day, largely because of the engagement in the education space. And according to the most recent Australian government data, the Nepali community in Australia is our fastest growing migrant community. It is now the 9th largest migrant community. It's jumped one spot in the last year. And we have over 180,000 Nepalis who have now made Australia their home. And my friends in the Department of Education have also recently advised that at the moment there are 56,000 Nepali students in Australia enrolled in Australian institutions. But I would expect that if I was standing here in a year's time, that number would have dropped somewhat significantly, which worries me. And I hope that this is just a short-term trough in the cycle. I appreciate that we do want to work towards steady growth, but I also hope that we are looking in the near future at an upwards trajectory once again. The government-to-government engagement is very important because when I have Australian ministers come here, when they learn more about Nepal, when they understand the country better, I think it makes them more capable of formulating good policy and policy that benefits both countries. So in 2023, I was really pleased to be hosting our Assistant Foreign Minister, Tim Watts, here. It was the first of such ministerial visits in more than 3 decades, and so it was a particularly important one from my point of view, both symbolically but also for substantive reasons. And indeed he had many conversations about the education sector, which I think have been to the benefit of all of us. Minister Watts used his calls on Nepal's leadership to emphasise the value to both Nepal and Australia of these educational exchanges and cooperation. He underlined Australia's commitment to provide a world-class education to Nepali students, as well as a very safe and happy experience for those studying and living in Australia. He spoke of the deep affection that Australians have for their Nepali students and for the diaspora community, and he emphasised that Australia encourages the Nepali students it's hosted to return to Nepal and to contribute to the country's development. And then in October, as was mentioned, we had a visit by the Speaker of the Australian Parliament leading a delegation of 5 parliamentarians here. They were delighted to meet with alumni and to see how a quality education from Australia is underpinning Nepal's development, its growth, its prosperity. Then in November, the former Chair of the National Assembly, Ganesh Timul Sena, took a delegation to Australia. We also hosted Deputy Mayor Sunita Dungal on a special visits program across 4 Australian cities. So we're seeing momentum in the relationship, and all of these engagements speak to Australia and Nepal's rich and thriving friendship, and this includes important and close connections in the education sector. But we know that international education brings both opportunities and challenges, and I'm regularly having conversations with government and with industry about the impacts of the brain drain in Nepal. And my response to these concerns is that I see international education as brain drain leading to brain gain for Nepal. And of course, this does require Nepali students to return home and to find good employment opportunities and business opportunities, leadership opportunities here. And this in turn requires strong, responsive and effective government policy on the part of Nepal's leadership. So I wish Nepal political stability and good governance to take forward the development and implementation of sound policy that would be the foundation for the country's prosperity and that would be also attracting Nepali students back home. We have been running a campaign, #ComingHome, with our alumni, and it's a pity that Surya didn't study in Australia, because I'd make you our poster boy for that campaign. But the messaging that you delivered tonight is the same messaging that we're really trying to promote across the board, with students who are going out to Australia, with students who are there at the moment, with students who are considering coming back, and those who are here. And the point you made about the fact that often coming home is regarded as a failure, I have heard this over and over again. So what we're trying to do with our Coming Home campaign is to emphasise that coming home is an indication of success, and it points to the future success of the country. You've had the opportunity to hear from Jade and Catherine on the pressures that Australia has been navigating and the policy responses. And I won't speak any further to this other than to say that I've heard and I've registered the challenges that many of you have raised with me. And I wanted to emphasise that the doors of the Australian Embassy in Kathmandu are always open to all of you, any of you, when you feel that you have issues you want to raise with us. We are very keen to hear from you as we navigate these new policies and their implementation, the implications for students, the implications for you as agents and counsellors. And I'm really happy to convey your feedback to Canberra. This will continue with my successor on my departure.
त्यस्तै सो अवसरमा अस्ट्रेलियाली राजदूत फेलोसिटी हकलाई विशेष सम्मान समेत व्यक्त गरिएको थियो। कार्यक्रमको अन्त्यमा उपस्थित अतिथि तथा सहयोगी हातहरूलाई मायाको चिनो प्रदान गरिएको थियो। त्यस्तै कार्यक्रम सभ्य र भव्य रूपमा सम्पन्न भएकोमा संस्थाका भाइस प्रेसिडेन्ट बुद्धिसागर अर्यालले सम्पूर्णमा धन्यवाद व्यक्त गर्दै कार्यक्रमको समापन गर्नुभएको थियो।
Gratitude to all who have contributed to making today's ceremony a resounding success. First and foremost, I express my heartfelt appreciation to our esteemed chief guest, Her Excellency Madam Felicity Vogue, Australian Ambassador to Nepal, for joining us despite her busy schedule. My appreciation goes to representatives from Department of Home Affairs, Ms. Catherine, Second Secretary Immigration, Ms. J. Tone, Councillor Department of Home Affairs. Thank you so much, both of you. Travel all the way from Delhi to Kathmandu. Your presence make our convention a grand success, and you have addressed our current queries and made us more confident in the Australian education system. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to AAERI Nepal team, Mr. Dviraj Sharma Sivakoti, Chairman, Mr. Mahesh Babu Timil Sinha, immediate past President, Executive Board members, especially Nagraji and Sujan Bhai, and entire AAERI Nepal team. I am also grateful to Mr. Ananta Paudel, President of ANA, for his inspiring words, continued dedication to our community. I special thank you to Professor Dr. Subarna Lal Bajracharya sir, Vice Chancellor of Lumbini Buddhist University in Nepal. Your participation has greatly enriched our understanding of global education. Thank you so much, lucky man, for being here. Respected Sir Simit Koirala, thank you for your time for this event. I'm also grateful to Surya Karki, Earth Impact Hero 2024 for sharing your thoughts on the topic of global education, risks and reward while returning back to Nepal. Your presence and perspective have been extremely inspiring. Also, extended my sincere thanks to Australian University and college representatives for your presence. Your insights and support are greatly valued. And directing our attention to the critical role of our sponsor, we must acknowledge the success of this event. In their support, we extend our heartfelt appreciation to the NIB Insurance, Nabil Bank, Nepal SBI Bank, IDP, Alpha Care, Pearson Taste of English, and Agentics. Thank you so much for such a generous contribution. Also, I would like to extend sincere and heartily expression of gratitude to the media personnel who have honored us this presence here today and cover our program. Next, I would like to thank Hotel Hilton Kathmandu for providing venue to conduct our event. Once again, thank you all. Thank you so much.